Digby Scott, thanks for joining me on the Leading Through Challenge show. What did we just talk about today?
Well, we talked about leading people through challenge, and some of the ideas that I love kicking around with you was this idea of learning to see and to be present before jumping or rushing to conclusions. It's about separating fact from fiction, to be able to just put the rumours to the side and all the imaginative stuff and actually go, so what's real and what can we work with right now? What else did we talk about? We talked a lot about the importance of having a sense of purpose and cultivating others' sense of purpose as well. So give us more than just the day-to-day tasks, something that's meaningful. And one other thing that I remember we talked about was just gone out of my head. We talked about so much stuff. What else did we cover now?
We did. We talked about building in like a mindset of experimentation.
Yeah, absolutely. And just trying stuff out, because now the walls are cracking open for us to go and play a bit more, I reckon. Now's a great time to try new stuff.
Digby Scott, welcome to the Leading Through Challenge show. How you doing, mate?
It's good to be here. I'm leading and leaning into it right now. I'm enjoying life, actually.
Beautiful. Yeah. Who is Digby Scott in a nutshell?
Digby Scott is a Australian who happens to choose to live in New Zealand, and that's kind of hard right now because I don't get the choice to jump over the ditch and see my folks or friends and family for the foreseeable future. I am someone who loves working at the intersection of what's known and what's unknown. So I guess you could say it's the liminal space, they call it. I learned that word last year, liminal. And I love helping people be at that edge of known and unknown, and that's exactly where I'm finding myself, and I think the vast majority of us are finding ourselves right now. So when I'm working, I'm running leadership programs and workshops, and I'm running webinars and coaching, etc., all around finding that space and being effective at the edge of it.
And so is that the exciting thing that got you into working with leaders and into leadership at the start, trying to find that space?
I think I've been working in this sort of leadership development arena for probably 20-something years. And I guess it's always about, I've always been asking the question of myself and others and organisations, like, what's the edge of possible? Right? And I used to work in recruitment before I got into the leadership development space. And recruitment is about recruiting talent for your organisation to realise the possibility that this person has for you. And I think, to me, that continues, the leadership development bit of that is actually, let's really realise that for you as a leader, as someone who can unleash possibility and potential in others. And gosh, we need it right now. Is that a word? Goshly? Gosh, we need it right now. It is now.
I'll check the dictionary afterwards, mate.
Yeah, well, we can put it in the Urban Dictionary maybe. Yeah. So, it's always fascinated me, the realisation of potential. It sounds a bit twee to say it, but this idea of let's see how far we can take something. I think it's an important question for entrepreneurs, for leaders to be asking.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously that creates a whole lot of progress and a whole lot of different ways of doing things, is the ability to lean into what's possible or what might even be possible. I mean, in a situation like we're in at the moment, it's really, really unique in this lockdown period, and like it's a massive challenge for a whole lot of people. And in these challenging times, often I think it's quite easy to get overwhelmed with a lot of things, and overwhelmed with survival, and just kind of get sucked back to, all right, what do I need to do to survive? And that's a really important thing. Obviously, we need to survive through this period first and foremost. But how do we start to think about what's possible during this period of time, and kind of maybe expand our viewpoints a little bit?
That's a good question. How do we start? I love the way you say, how do we start to think about it, rather than how do we rush to an answer? Because I think that's the first challenge. Is I ran a webinar this morning on leading in uncertainty, and we were talking about the idea or the challenge of when uncertainty arises and challenge arises, we kind of rush to find something that's certain or known. And, as a leader, it's often we're under the pressure to show that you have an answer for people. Here is the way. Here is the answer. This is what we're going to do. Follow me. And I think when we're facing the sort of unprecedented challenge and the ambiguity that's floating around right now, it's really easy to rush to an answer or to try and grab something. And I think, the natural human condition is we like certainty, and neuroscience shows us that. But I reckon the place to start, just to use your language, the place to start thinking about this is what I call learning to see. And what I mean by that is not to be too much in the future or the past. And the past is the good old days and the future is yet to happen. But to be in the present and just to see what is actually happening now. And to do that, you have to actually learn to be present. And to learn to be present, as we know from meditation and from yoga and anything like that, it's about learning actually first to breathe, just to notice your breathing, and stop and stand and just go, here I am. It's the old saying, be here now. And so I reckon as you start to become more present to what's going on now in your mind, your emotions, your body, I think your body is the instrument to start with. What is your body telling you? Then you can see more clearly what the reality is that's around you. You can start to sort of pass out, stories and rumors from fact and reality. And then you can be more choiceful. So to me, the starting point is to be present and is to learn to see. Is to learn to see what is, as opposed to kind of rush too far into the future or hark back to the good old days. A colleague of mine, Nick Petrie, talks about, don't ruminate. And ruminating is thinking about the past or the future with negative emotions attached. And I think it's about, again, learning to be present and present without judgment as much as possible. Be detached is not quite the right word, but to notice. It's a long answer to your question, though, mate.
Yeah, no, it's a good one as well, and I think that that non-judgmental piece as well is really important in situations like this, because there's already a whole lot of stress on us in this environment. That if you're taking in information and you're judging it, then actually what that often does is it just ramps your stress levels up. Whereas if you can look at it as, hey, this is just a data point for me, this is a piece of information coming in, and then I get to choose how I want to respond to it. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's right. I remember when I can't remember how long ago it was, but like when Jacinda Ardern went, we're going to make everyone who's coming into New Zealand go into 14 days of isolation. That feels like years ago. It was probably only about 3 weeks ago. And I remember going, wow, this is exciting. Like, I was like, well, I probably shouldn't tell people that, but because other people are going to have a different response, right? They're going to have this is bad. Oh, man, that means that my brother or sister or mother or whatever, they're coming to New Zealand, they're going to have to self-fight. That's bad, right? Well, I'm going, this is good. And so, just noticing my own thoughts. That actually, well, firstly, it's not about not having judgment. It's about noticing that you've got judgment and you go, okay, is that going to serve me or not? I reckon that's the starting point. Hey, like, learn to see. Yeah. But I don't think it's the only bit. I think there's more around it than just stopping and being present.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've noticed you kind of talking and writing about a bit recently is having a sense of purpose through this, which is obviously great in terms of kind of creating hope for yourself and having hope to move towards. Why do you think purpose is important during this time period, especially, or through any challenge?
Well, it's a great question. I think purpose is something that we can make up for ourselves. So therefore we have complete control over it. And again, if we come back to the human need for certainty and control, it's something that we can control, right? We can invent a sense of purpose. So, and we can do that for ourselves, but we can also do it collectively. So leadership, leading a group of people into the unknown, why don't we try and find a common purpose? Now, if you're in the COVID-19 response team for the government, the purpose is pretty clear, eh? And it's actually really galvanizing. And it's sort of like, right, we're making a difference. We're going, we're ticking the boxes. But for others who aren't in that kind of adrenaline-fueled world, I think a lot of the time this sense of meaning and purpose can be kind of like the rug has been pulled from underneath you. It's like, so how do I spend my time now? I've painted the fence and I've mown the lawn and done 10 loads of laundry. What do I do? And humans have a deep desire to make meaning out of life. And as Viktor Frankl wrote in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, this is a core driver for us. And Dan Pink more recently wrote in his book Drive about the 3 intrinsic drivers of motivation: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So it's a key need. So if we couple that there's this key need, but it's in our complete control, it kind of gives us a sense of settling, but also direction. Okay, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. In my conversation with Alicia Mackay the other day, we finished by saying, find meaning in every day. Find something that's meaningful to do in every day. And I think that's why it's important, because just to exist is not particularly fulfilling, whereas to exist with purpose is way more meaningful. And I think you can get out of bed every day with a little bit more spring in your step.
Yeah. And has your purpose changed at all over this period of time compared to, say, what it was a month ago?
I don't know if it's changed. I think certain elements are probably amplified. I found myself, I feel like I've always been in service, but right now it feels like the thing that I need to do every day is to serve with what I know, give people the opportunity to be in conversation like we are now, to make sense of stuff through some of the stuff that I think about. And so all these webinars I've been offering over the last few weeks have been a way of, I guess, me amplifying that sense of purpose. Like, I want to help, and there's a clear need that I reckon I can help with, and I don't want to ram it down people's throats, but I'm here. So if you want this stuff, come and I'll help you. And that's been incredibly fulfilling for me. I've in some ways it's been over amplified. I felt like I've been on adrenaline a bit the last few weeks. But on the other hand, it's galvanized me. It's like, I think I can help some people here. And so the purpose hasn't changed. It's just been almost like the lens was maybe a little foggy before, and it's gone crystal clear. And it's like, and looking for that. I would encourage anyone to say, how can I make my days meaningful now through serving others to help them through this tough time. And I think, coming back to the original question about how do you lead in challenging times, I think to help others serve others and help them find a way to use their talents and their strengths and it doesn't have to be anything big, but just help others to help others in whatever they can do is really, really good leadership at the moment.
Yeah, and I love the way that you frame that as well, is that it's so simple. And basically, I think that is what it boils down to, just helping others. Because at the end of the day, that's basically what every business or organization is about, is helping others. And the leader's job is to help the people to do that.
Oh, there we go. There's our formula, right?
I think we're done, mate. I think we're done.
I like it. That's potent.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to talk to you about as well is we've been forced into this situation, and we've talked about kind of the need for survival, the need for purpose as well. But in every challenge, there's massive opportunity as well. But that opportunity isn't always clear for us, and sometimes we need to experiment around, hey, what are some things that we could do to maybe go after an opportunity, or what are some things that we could do to maybe unearth or kind of make clear an opportunity that we might not see at the moment. So how do we develop an experimental mindset and to be able to see those opportunities?
Man, your questions have got really good this last week. Talked. I think the first step in that, if I was to, I reckon it's actually to ask that question, what's the opportunity here? I've noticed with the webinars I've been running that when I say what's your number one question about leading in uncertainty, often that is the answer. People saying, what's the opportunity here? And I think it's being open for that to arrive as opposed to trying to chase it down. I think it's about noticing and just having your radar on and then noticing, there's an opportunity. Ooh, as opposed to kind of going hunting with a backpack full of tools, right? So I think first thing is just ask the question, what's the opportunity? And then live your life. And probably the next thing is to go, that looks interesting. Like, what grabs your interest? And again, from a leadership lens, helping others, it's about helping others have this conversation too. What opportunities, asking the question, what opportunities do you reckon are here right now? What's grabbing your interest that you might want to experiment with? And you kind of come in with that curious lens. And then I think with the actual experimentation, often people get stopped. They don't experiment so much because it looks dangerous or it's going to break something or I might be seen to fail. And so I've kind of like this idea of having an MVE or minimum viable experiment. And some people call it the safe to fail, right? Where it's like, what's the smallest little thing you could try? And again, if you're helping others, asking that question, what's one little thing you could try today that might just help you pursue that glimmer of an opportunity that you might be seeing? Right? So there's no real stakes. There's no real pressure to perform. It's just like, try it out and see. Because I think the more we have a sense that we're discovering something and we're learning something, the more we can be motivated. Again, all the brain chemicals kick in. It's like, actually a bit more of that. So I know a good example of that is, the first webinar I ran was about 3 weeks ago. We had almost 100 people on it, and I'd never used Zoom's breakout rooms before. And it was like, holy crap, I'm going to try this out. And there was actually a bit of skin in the game, right? There was 100 people waiting for a good webinar. But it worked, and it was like, oh, cool, this is good. I'm going to do this again. And that fix I got from that, so, I'm learning some stuff. I want to keep doing this. So, yeah, there's some tips. So, like, ask what's the opportunity here, follow your interest, and notice what excites you and intrigues you, and then try some little experiment with.
Yeah, and I really like the idea that you used of the kind of the MVE, the minimal viable experiment, and the ability to have a loss on it, because like there's massive amounts of uncertainty. We don't know what's going to work at the moment, and it is about testing things out. And again, kind of same thing that we talked about before. It's not viewing and judging yourself if you have a failure, in parentheses, in these times. It's actually, hey, here's a data point. This opportunity that I thought was there, it's not so good.
And I reckon the time, I think we're more tolerant of experiments now than perhaps we have been for a while in society, because we have to try some stuff, right? And you think about remote working, right? It's a nice idea that some companies were sort of trying. And then others were like, no, we need to have a policy around this, and we need to have it all down and approved. And like, actually, now we're all working from home. We've got to do stuff out, So I think it's good to experiment now, because I think the tolerance for, not failure, but the tolerance for things that don't work, and the willingness to learn and share, I think is higher. Which is positive.
Exactly. Yeah. Digby, I mean, this show is all about leadership, but do you have a time that you felt that you weren't a good leader?
Yeah.
Are you open to sharing?
Yeah. Oh man, that's so good. All squeamish here. There's probably a lot of times, and there's probably more that I'm not aware of as well. So if you think about the ones. A more recent one was when I was working in an organisation here in Wellington, and I was the director of a company. I was part of the leadership team, and I just did not feel at home in the organisation. I just felt like I couldn't be myself. As a friend of mine said, and I think we've talked about this before, like a horse in a paddock running around. The paddock's too small for me. I'm just kind of running around, but not really being very effective. And I think that came through. I did a 360 when I was there, and that came through in the results. It's like great with people, but it doesn't really drive anything. Right? It's like, what a kick in the guts. And I think what that was about was me playing it too safe. Not really wanting to rock the boat with my colleagues, and not really feeling like I was doing meaningful work, to be honest, either. And the first 2 years were great, and then I sort of started to plateau. And I don't think I was a very good leader then. I think it was opportunity lost to make a difference there. And again, I don't really dwell on it anymore, but I look back and I go, okay, yeah. Lesson learned, surround yourself by people and work that is meaningful to you. And that then enabled me to, because the first few years when I was there, I was on fire. I had a mission. I was going hard. People were voluntarily wanting to work with me. I didn't have to go out and recruit. So there was something going on. There was some magnetism that then I started to lose. And for the last couple of years, I think it flatlined. As I lost my mojo. So I think having mojo, having a sense of purpose again, and a certain sense of fulfilling work is core to me, at least, in being a good leader.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing
That's
that, mate.
Interesting story. No worries. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. It's interesting to see the themes come through as well, the sense of purpose and the sense of experimentation that you lost in that, just what we've been talking about. Digby, what's influenced your thinking about leadership the most in the last year?
Oh, man, another good question. Okay, I will share it with you. It's not pre-prepared. This is sitting on my desk right now. It's this book. I'm gonna write to Greg McCowan and go, I want royalties, mate, because I've recommended this book to so many people.
Yeah.
And it's called Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. And it's really, I read it in January. It rocked my world and continues to. Just this idea of focusing on just a few key things and having the courage to say no to everything else has been massive for not just my productivity, but my sense of momentum and a sense of fulfillment. I think I'm having more of an impact and having more fun just by being courageous enough to say no to stuff that doesn't matter. And of course, the hard bit is discerning what you say no to a lot of the time. And there's another guy called Gary Keller, who I listened to a podcast of his at the same time, and he wrote a book, I think it's called The One Thing. And he has this question, what's the one thing that you could do that if I just did that this week or today or this month, that in the future everything else will become easier or unnecessary? And it's kind of like the lead domino. If I push that one domino, all the others fall. So what is that thing to double down on? So it's not really about people leadership per se, but it is about, I think, that disciplined thinking of just being strategic about what matters most. And of course, that's not an easy question to answer.
No. It's a nice question to pose, though. And I mean, take going on from that, like, what is the thing that leaders should be doing right now?
Leaning in. Now is the time to lead. And I wrote a blog about it, which you might want to link into the show notes for this, from 3 or 4 weeks ago. And one of the things was like double down on human connection. There's always work to do, but there's always people to look after. And I think to double down on the human connection, because our fundamental need as humans is to have a sense of belonging, a sense of connection. And if that's sorted, then we can get on with the work. The other thing leaders should do is sort fact from fiction, right? So at the moment, when we're disconnected and we're working remotely, because we don't have real-time information and we don't have all the information, rumours and myths and stories and what's going on can all be abounding. And I think our role is to focus on what's real and to focus on keeping people grounded in not just facts from a data point of view, but just helping people kind of stop and get present and going, what's actually really going on? Again, coming back to learning to see. So they would be two things I'd say.
Fantastic. Digby Scott, thanks so much for joining me today.
Chris, mate, always a pleasure, and looking forward to the next conversation.
I always have a blast having a chat with Digby Scott. He's got some amazing viewpoints. And that was the Leading Through Challenge show. What I'd love you to do now is I would love you to share this with one person that you think would benefit from it. I'd also love you to subscribe on wherever you watch this or listen to it, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Spotify. Hit subscribe, leave a rating and a review. I really want to get these conversations out to as many people as possible because I think they're going to be really beneficial in this time. And one way to do that is to ask for your guys' help and have you rate, comment, subscribe, because that just ends up making this more visible. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you again soon.